across the vast expanse of a fractured cosmos. Two trajectories that were never meant to intersect begin to drift toward a single point of convergence. On one side moves a being sculpted by ruthless biological evolution, an apex warrior whose species perfected the art of conquest over millennia. Omni-Man carries with him the cold resolve of a civilization that views domination not as ambition, but as natural law. On the other side, the first tremors of this scenario emerge not in battlefields, but in the quiet tension of observation. Omni-Man senses a presence unlike any he has encountered, a figure whose strength is not projected through muscle or velocity, but through an unwavering stillness that radiates authority. The Emperor, in turn, studies the Viltrumite with a kind of clinical fascination. He sees in Omni-Man a creature engineered for dominance, a living instrument refined to enforce a singular directive across civilizations. Yet beneath the surface, he also detects conflict, a friction between instinct and emerging conscience. To the Emperor, this contradiction is both weakness and potential. To Omni-Man, the Emperor's power feels paradoxical. It is not visible, not measurable, yet undeniably present, like a pressure pushing against the very idea of resistance. Their encounter begins not with blows, but with an exchange of presence, silent, heavy, and transformative. When their first contact finally breaks into motion, the universe reacts as though two anchors of reality have been forced into collision. Omni-Man closes the distance with a speed that rips through atmospheric layers in an instant. His fist, capable of tearing apart reinforced worlds, arcs toward the Emperor with unstoppable conviction. But before impact, Omni-Man feels something tightening around his mind, a subtle force attempting to map the contours of his intent. The Emperor does not move physically. Instead, he channels a surge of psychic influence that slows the Viltrumite's strike by fractions of a moment. To any other opponent, those fractions would be meaningless. But to beings of their magnitude, microseconds determine outcomes. Omni-Man forces himself through the psychic drag and delivers the blow. The resulting shockwave fractures the landscape. Yet when the dust settles, the Emperor is still standing, hardly displaced, his expression unchanged. An unspoken declaration that this confrontation will demand far more than brute strength. Omni-Man steps back, not out of fear, but out of calculation. The Emperor's resilience defies every metric he knows. Viltrumites measure opponents by the way their bones crack, by the depth of their impact on terrain, by how quickly they submit beneath overwhelming force. But the Emperor does not respond like a physical being. His stance does not shift, his posture does not tighten, and his breathing remains as consistent as if the punch never occurred. This lack of reaction is its own message, a message that the Emperor operates on a level where physical damage is only one variable among many. Omni-Man narrows his eyes. For the first time in decades, he acknowledges that he may need more than velocity and strength. He may need strategy. The Emperor's perspective is entirely different. He analyzes Omni-Man not as a threat, but as a specimen of potential. He senses the density of the Viltrumite's muscles, the controlled aggression in his thoughts, the disciplined brutality woven into his DNA. But beyond that, he perceives faint echoes of internal tension, contradictions that mark a being struggling between inherited purpose and learned empathy. The Emperor does not attack immediately. He simply raises one hand, and the air around Omni-Man distorts. For a moment, Omni-Man feels his consciousness stretching thin, as if the Emperor is attempting to read the very blueprint of his mind. Omni-Man lashes out instinctively, shattering the psychic probe with raw willpower. The Emperor lowers his hand, intrigued rather than thwarted. Omni-Man rockets upward, breaking the sound barrier as he ascends. He has learned from countless worlds that altitude provides advantage. More time to accelerate, more angles of attack, more room to maneuver. From above, he dives with a velocity that blurs the sky into a single streak of motion. The Emperor watches, unhurried. As Omni-Man descends, he channels his full kinetic might into a single strike, a blow that could collapse a mountain range. But before the hit lands, the Emperor shifts, not physically, but energetically. A translucent ripple of psychic projection envelops him, distributing the incoming force across multiple layers of psychic resistance. Omni-Man impacts with earth-splitting intensity, yet the Emperor merely slides back a few inches. It is the smallest displacement, but to Omni-Man, it is proof that the Emperor can be moved, if only slightly. The Emperor finally responds with motion. He steps forward, not quickly, not aggressively, but with a deliberate weight that warps the air around him. Each footfall sends faint vibrations through the ground, as if reality itself acknowledges his presence. Omni-Man braces, expecting a counterstrike. Instead, the Emperor raises two fingers and the world tilts. Omni-Man feels his equilibrium slip, his perception skewing as though gravity has shifted sideways. He staggers, momentarily disoriented. The Emperor has altered the sensory field around him, manipulating not matter, but the mind's interpretation of space. For the Viltrumite, whose combat relies on spatial awareness, this is a profound disadvantage. Omni-Man grits his teeth and stabilizes, resisting the distortion through sheer mental discipline. Recovering quickly, Omni-Man charges again, this time zigzagging unpredictably, attempting to break through the Emperor's sensory manipulation. His movements distort the air into twisting vortices. The Emperor's eyes follow, not with fear, but with precise observation. He extends his arm, and a concentrated beam of psychic compression erupts forward. It is not energy in the traditional sense. It is focused intent sharpened into force. The beam collides with Omni-Man mid-flight, halting his momentum instantly. For a moment, Omni-Man hangs suspended, pinned between the pressure of the psychic blast and the force of his own acceleration. He roars, pushing through the psychic bind with brute physical will. The beam cracks like shattered glass and dissipates. The Emperor tilts his head slightly, an acknowledgement that the Viltrumite's endurance exceeds even initial expectations. Omni-Man lands heavily, carving a trench through the ground. Dust and debris swirl around him as he rises. The Emperor approaches, his aura intensifying. Omni-Man senses the shift. The Emperor is no longer merely analyzing. He is beginning to escalate. Psychic lightning arcs across the surface of the Emperor's armorless form, flickering like spectral fire. The air thickens, pressure rising until breathing becomes a conscious effort. Omni-Man lunges, throwing a series of rapid strikes, each capable of disintegrating reinforced alloys. The Emperor counters without touching him, redirecting each strike with bursts of telekinetic force. Their combat becomes a blur. Muscle against mind, velocity against will, impact against intent. The ground beneath them fractures into spiraling chasms as their powers clash. Omni-Man's strikes become faster, heavier, more precise. The Emperor's defenses become more fluid, more adaptive, more intricate. Every punch Omni-Man throws meets invisible resistance. Every psychic surge the Emperor unleashes meets Viltrumite durability. Their struggle feels less like a duel and more like two cosmic principles attempting to override each other. Omni-Man represents unstoppable momentum, a force that conquers by continuity. The Emperor represents immovable will, a presence that bends outcomes through sheer inevitability. When these two forces meet, the environment around them becomes collateral, reshaped by the friction of their existence. Eventually, Omni-Man decides he needs a different angle. He breaks away from the close quarters exchange and ascends again, higher this time. The Emperor watches him climb, his expression unchanged. Omni-Man reaches the upper atmosphere and dives, surpassing terminal velocity. His body ignites from air friction, becoming a projectile of burning force. As he descends, he channels every ounce of his strength into a single decisive blow, one meant to end battles, not prolong them. But the Emperor does something unexpected. He closes his eyes. The moment Omni-Man reaches him, the Emperor unleashes a pulse of psychic shockwave in perfect synchrony with the Viltrumite's kinetic energy. The collision generates a dome of expanding force that sweeps across the battlefield, leveling terrain for miles. When the shockwave dissipates, both figures stand unmoved. Omni-Man's armorless frame shows cracks of exertion, rare signs of strain for a Viltrumite. The Emperor's aura flickers slightly, revealing that even he must expend significant effort to counter raw physical force of this magnitude. Omni-Man wipes blood from his lip and smiles, not mockingly, but with genuine exhilaration. The Emperor studies the Viltrumite's reaction and finds it unusual. Most who face him either break or retreat, but Omni-Man grows more focused, more precise, more alive. The Emperor realizes that this battle is not simply physical for Omni-Man. It is a test of self-definition. The Emperor shifts again, this time adopting a more offensive stance. Threads of psychic luminescence spiral around his arms, coiling like serpents of pure intention. Omni-Man steadies his breathing. The Emperor gestures forward, and the ground erupts beneath Omni-Man's feet. Tendrils of telekinetic force wrap around him, constricting with unimaginable pressure. Omni-Man strains, muscles bulging, veins glowing beneath his skin. He forces one arm free, then the other, tearing through the psychic bindings with explosive force. The Emperor responds with a sweeping arc of psychic distortion, bending the very air into a blade-like edge. It slices across Omni-Man's chest, leaving a trail of burning sensation. Omni-Man winces, but does not falter. The battle intensifies as both beings begin tapping into deeper reserves. Omni-Man unleashes a barrage of strikes, each generating sonic detonations. The Emperor counters with psychic spheres that collapse inward like miniature gravitational wells. Omni-Man punches through one, only to find his arm briefly caught in a vortex of compressed thought. He yanks it free before the vortex implodes. The Emperor's expression tightens, just enough to show that maintaining this level of defense requires effort. Omni-Man senses opportunity. He accelerates around the Emperor in a spiraling pattern, attempting to confuse his spatial awareness. But psychic perception extends beyond direction or motion. The Emperor extends his hand, and Omni-Man is halted mid-flight, suspended like an insect in amber. For a moment, Omni-Man cannot move. He feels the Emperor's consciousness press against his own. There is no malice in the probe, only analysis, deep, precise, relentless. The Emperor attempts to map the architecture of Viltrumite biology and thought. Omni-Man's memories flash involuntarily. Battlefields, conquered worlds, fractured loyalties, moments of quiet regret. He roars and shatters the psychic hold with a surge of inner defiance, breaking free. He drives forward with a punch fueled by emotional backlash. The Emperor crosses his arms, channeling psychic fortification. The blow lands with enough force to reshape the cliffside behind him. Cracks spiderweb across the Emperor's aura. Omni-Man sees progress and hope. The Emperor, now gauging Omni-Man's upper limits, shifts strategy. He extends both hands, palms outward, and the battlefield transforms. The air dims, colors fade, sound dampens. Omni-Man finds himself in a psychic projection, a domain shaped not by physical laws, but by the Emperor's will. The ground beneath him ripples like liquid stone. The sky becomes a tapestry of swirling patterns. Omni-Man feels disoriented, as if his senses have been inverted. The Emperor's voice resonates, not through air, but through thought. He tells Omni-Man that here, physical power is only one component of survival. Omni-Man growls, bracing himself. He punches the ground and feels it respond like dense gel. This realm is a challenge and a trap. Inside the psychic domain, the Emperor manifests multiple projections of himself, surrounding Omni-Man from all sides. Each projection radiates a slightly different wavelength of psychic intent. Omni-Man swings at one, but his fist passes through like mist. Another projection strikes him with a burst of mental pressure, sending him stumbling. The Emperor uses this realm to test Omni-Man's adaptability. The Viltrumite closes his eyes briefly, shutting out the sensory overload. When he opens them, he focuses not on appearances, but on intent. He detects the one projection with genuine thought patterns and lunges. His strike connects, disrupting the psychic environment and forcing the Emperor's true form to reappear. The Emperor acknowledges Omni-Man's adaptability but knows that this level of contest must escalate further. He channels a surge of psychic backlash that collapses the domain. Reality snaps back into place with a thunderous shock. Omni-Man staggers, disoriented but still standing. The Emperor floats slightly above the ground now, his aura blazing brighter than before. Omni-Man feels the temperature rise and the air vibrate with latent psychic turbulence. He wipes dust from his face and steadies himself. The Emperor is preparing to reveal the deeper layers of his power, the layers rarely deployed outside existential threats. Omni-Man steadies himself and charges once more, meeting the Emperor mid-air. Their collision sends spiraling rings of force outward like expanding halos. Each strike they exchange carries enough force to destabilize lesser dimensions. Omni-Man lands a punch that drives the Emperor downward, creating a crater upon impact. The Emperor rises calmly, his aura coalescing into solid form around his arms. He swings, and the psychic construct slams into Omni-Man like a meteor. Omni-Man crashes through multiple rock formations before halting. He emerges battered but unbroken. For the first time, the Emperor sees fatigue creeping into the Viltrumite's movements. The Emperor leaps forward, not with speed, but with inevitability. His presence alone shifts gravitational currents. Omni-Man counters with a flurry of blows, each faster than the last. But the Emperor deflects them with psychic redirection, turning each punch aside with fluid efficiency. Omni-Man attempts a feint and aims a blow at the Emperor's flank. The Emperor catches his wrist, channels a burst of psychic energy directly into Omni-Man's nervous system, and sends him crashing to the ground. Omni-Man growls, pushing himself back up. His body is resilient, but the Emperor's attacks are beginning to carve through layers of his endurance. Omni-Man, refusing to yield, ignites his full physical reserves. His muscles tighten, his aura flares with kinetic force, and he becomes a streak of motion. He hammers the Emperor with a furious onslaught, faster, heavier, more desperate. Each punch creates shockwaves that shape the wind into spiraling currents. The Emperor absorbs the hits, his aura flickering with each impact. Then, with a single gesture, he releases a psychic detonation that halts the onslaught entirely. Omni-Man is hurled backward across the battlefield, carving trenches as he tumbles. He rises again, coughing, battered, but still unwilling to concede. The Emperor descends slowly, landing with quiet finality. He approaches Omni-Man with a measured gait. His aura dims slightly, shifting from raw power to something more focused. He studies the Viltrumite closely and recognizes that even now, Omni-Man is not fighting simply out of aggression. He is fighting out of defiance. Defiance of limitation, of destiny, of inherited roles. The Emperor respects this. He speaks for the first time since the battle began, telling Omni-Man that strength without purpose is directionless, and purpose without clarity is a burden. Omni-Man clenches his fists, but listens. Even in battle, knowledge can reshape outcomes. Omni-Man charges again, but this time his movements carry new intention. He is no longer merely attacking. He is attempting to read the Emperor, studying minute shifts in energy, subtle changes in aura density, fluctuations in psychic projection. The Emperor notices this evolution and decides to test Omni-Man one final time. He unleashes a controlled surge of psychic power, creating a storm of chaotic force around them. Omni-Man pushes through the turbulence, each step requiring monumental effort. When he reaches the Emperor, he delivers a punch that shakes the horizon. The Emperor absorbs it, slides back several meters, and for the first time shows visible strain as the storm calms. Both beings stand in the ruined landscape, exhausted, fractured, and transformed. Omni-Man's breaths are heavy, each inhale a reminder of the limits he has pushed beyond. The Emperor's aura flickers, revealing the immense strain of maintaining such overwhelming power. Neither being has achieved absolute victory. Instead, they have reached a point of mutual recognition. The Emperor acknowledges Omni-Man's tenacity and adaptability. Omni-Man acknowledges a force beyond physical dominance, a will that cannot be crushed by brute power. In this alternate scenario, their battle does not end with conquest or destruction. It ends with understanding that even among beings of impossible strength, growth is achieved not through victory, but through the confrontation of one's own boundaries.